What do you think Samuel is trying to signify there by sending it back to his hand? It is going to give him a free look at his hand next turn. It is going to slow the clock down to 3 turns instead of 2. Do you think it was just a clock thing?
Well, I guess so. Sammy obviously has the option to swords the Vendilion Clique, but that would give 3 life to Jeremy, which is very big at this stage. So I guess Sammy feels that his hand is just, the cards are fairly irrelevant, so he can just afford to bounce Vendilion Clique every turn, take up a heap of Jeremy's mana, and try to fight through without having to give him that extra bit of life from the swords, although these Snapcasters are going to have to be dealt with at some point. But Sammy's taking this hit, dropping to 4. So we see 3 cards in Jeremy's hand. One of them is the Vendilion Clique. And he just passes the turn back, draw step, and yeah, we see the Vendilion Clique coming down.
He does have the option to Aether Vial whatever he drew in response.
Yeah, if he managed to get a Stoneforge Mystic or something, but it looks like he's just going to reveal, and we see all the same cards we knew, plus a Mother of Runes, and the Batterskull is going to be taken away, which I'm not sure how I feel about that here. Like, I guess... Well, I guess if you've got nothing to deal with it...
Bear in mind that he does have the 5 land out. He can cast the Batterskull. The Snapcasters can't get in for damage anymore, and he does have enough life to take 1 hit from the Vendilion Clique, and then bounce that every turn to ensure it can't attack.
Yeah, I guess hardcasting the Batterskull this turn would have been a fairly strong play. Assuming that Jeremy's not got an access to a force or any other sort of counter magic or interaction.
I was interested at Samuel's use of the Caracas. Personally, I felt that really opened him up right then and there to Terminus being pretty good. The Clique's no longer in play. The Snapcasters were mostly irrelevant. Like, they are swinging in 4 damage, but that would get the Talia out of play, and just Jeremy would be able to go from there.
Yeah. So we see Sammy drew a Plains.
He did have 1 extra draw, so one of those was off the draw step, and one of them was off the...
the draw step was yep. And we see his swords coming down, so we know all the contents of Sammy's hands now.
Is that a 3 mana swords?
I imagine it was 2 mana. He already had 3 mana tap for the Vendilion Clique.
Ah, yes.
So he's going to Caracas the Talia, which is going to force him to have 2 swords, the Vendilion Clique, and quite possibly a Snapcaster Mage. So he replays the Talia instantly, and he's quite possibly should have swords before replaying the Talia, but I don't think his mana is too constrained at this. Actually, now, if he wants to Rishadan Port and swords, he won't have enough mana. Whereas if he had swords before vialing in the Talia, he would have saved a mana. So we'll see if that ends up being relevant.
It did mean, that Jeremy was not able to play a counterspell that cost mana. He could have forced that swords there.
He still had 1 mana up.
He had 1 mana up, so if he had a Spell Pierce or something like that, that blanked that.
Yeah, I mean, Spell Pierce was fairly dead at this point anyway, but you could be right. He could have just been trying to play around a Dispel or Spell Pierce, etc. So we see the Snapcasters coming in.
Block 1, go to 2.
Yeah, again, the Miracles deck is obviously a deck that also has very little access to reach in the form of direct damage. So going to 2, Sammy's completely fine with. And a counterbalance comes down. I imagine Sammy will probably want to...
keep Talia on defense?
to swords that Snapcaster in response, as with the Sensei's Divining top out, you obviously get a free 1-drop counter. Yep, so Jeremy choosing to top.
Trying to find something to stop this.
Yeah,
potentially,
but
just resolve though, because he can't attack into the Talia anyway. Any creature he plays, including a 4/4 angel, is just going to fly over for lethal.
he's actually forced. I don't know how I feel about this. I definitely top there just because it's the right time to top. There's no need to like you want to get that information as fast as you can, but I don't know if this 2-1 is that important.
Especially as it's only a ground pounder against a ground pounder with first strike. I'm very much of the opinion there that Snapcaster is now irrelevant, whilst that Talia isn't.
Well, yeah, at this point though, like what the Snapcaster is doing is forcing the Talia to stay back on defense until Sammy can have another. Well, he's
Not
found
necessarily.
another blocker. Yeah, so any creature in his deck means that now.
He could attack, and then when Snapcaster comes in, he could bounce it and Violet back in for the
Sure,
block.
yeah, and there's no way that Jeremy can interact with that at all. But if he's doing that, then that means his Caracas is tapped and leaves him open to Swords to
More
Plowshares or Terminus. Jeremy drawing the Sensei's Divining Top for the turn. He's hellbent at this point, I believe. So he'll instantly have a look and see what he can find.
Obviously looking for the Entreat the Angels. He's got nothing he can do against it. Sammy just dies to even a single 4/4 in the air. He's used both his swords, so he needs to have drawn another removal spell.
Yeah, Entreat the Angels would be... But he needs to... Yeah, he'd need to upkeep Entreat the Angels in response to the Rishadan Port, which would be fine. Sammy in an interesting position here, depending on his hand, and now we see Talia going aggressive. It's quite possible, I think, Sammy needed to attack last turn, as giving Jeremy more turns with the top and counterbalance out is just going to put him further and further ahead to the point that he can win, and Sammy really needs to close the door in this window that he's been able to make.
But what we can see here is now the difference is now he has the Mother, so he's got the Caracas, he's got the Vial, and the Mother all protecting. All with the ability to protect.
Yeah, that's true. If he attacked last turn, I feel like maybe he could have just... Oh, the second Caracas. Maybe he could have just... we knew he had the second Caracas. Maybe he could have just traded the Mother off for the Snapcaster, or he could have done the play that he did this turn. He could have attacked with Talia, bounced it with Caracas, replayed the second Caracas, replayed Talia, and then you have the protection from a single removal spell. And yes, the dig through time is coming down, and that will be very good.
I don't think Jeremy realizes he can just pay 2 blue and delve for the extra mana.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think Jeremy's realized that at all. We'll see, depending on what he finds, if that's relevant. We see a Force there, which is not the most exciting of cards.
Another land.
They are not very exciting cards. So what do you think he's trying to find?
Regular old counterspell.
I don't think regular old counterspell is incredibly good at this point either. He really needs to get a...
I think that was a Caracas and a counterspell he's keeping. That was a very dead dig through time if that's the case.
So even with a Terminus and a Brainstorm, the Talia is still going to be in play. Oh, his own Caracas.
Yes.
Oh, so that's going to... So with Aether Vial tapped...
Mother of Runes won't do anything. Lands are notoriously colourless.
Yes, very much so.
It does mean the Snapcaster still can't attack in, because the Mother can just block and pro-blue itself.
Yeah, this is essentially just... well, it's not actually just one extra turn, because now Talia won't be able to attack ever again, as long as the Caracas is here. So that was a very good find. So now Sammy needs to find another threat. So Talia will still be a good creature in order to be able to restrict Jeremy's mana.
If he finds... Oh, I was going to say, if he found a Swords, the Mother of Runes will go, because between the Snapcaster and the Swords, the Mother can't do both.
Yep. And so we see a Snapcaster attack here, which I can only imagine is indicative of a Swords to Plowshares about to be cast.
Or a random Terminus.
Or
a misplay.
Or it's possibly Jeremy did not fully realize the abilities of Mother of Runes, which appears to be what has happened. Yeah.
Did we or did we not say earlier in this game that Mother of Runes is mostly irrelevant?
Yeah, eating Snapcasters is one of Mother of Runes' lesser used modes. To be honest, Mother of Runes' most used mode is just sitting in play and not doing anything. That was actually... It was not incredibly relevant at this point, as the Caracas is locking out Talia, but
interesting that we do know that the counterspell is in his hand. But
So he
against-
took the counterspell for the dig through time?
Yes, I believe that one card in Jeremy's hand is unlimited counterspell.
Man, it must have been
Another
a.
dig through time, perhaps. Snapcast.
That's definitely his
Yep.
Yeah.
This time-
Fantastic draw.
Again, he's Caracas the.
So you crack his Talia, and I think that second tap, well, the first tap planes there was again paying the extra mana for the dig through time. Although it's quite possible he just didn't want to have to delve away.
The
That's swords.
Plowshares, because another Snapcaster, not this turn. Well, he could take Snapcaster and a land, and that would give him the mana to do it. Oh no, Snapcaster land does it. Talia's gone.
Indeed, yes. Although the Mother of Runes is... Again, like Snapcaster Swords is not really necessary at this point until another threat is found, and Jeremy really just wants to find a Jace to pull far enough ahead to win, or an Entreat the Angels to instantly close the door. And
You've got to think
semi-appeasing.
that Jeremy's getting close now. He's gone 14 cards deep into his already very low library. Surely there's a
You would think
entreat
so, but
somewhere in the
again,
top.
he's only running
Oh,
one
no,
entreat.
There may be one in his hand. It may be in his hand.
Ah,
He's
okay.
brainstorming now.
Yeah, again, he's only running one entreat and two Jace, so
He did
very low
brainstorm
on.
into a Jace there.
Ah. Yeah, Sammy's drawn a lot of lands here and cannot find another threat to be able to get those last few points of damage through. So it appears to be an upkeep activation of top to draw the Entreat the Angels. I'm not sure.
It's probably going to be an Entreat the Angels, so if he does that, the Angels come in, and then he draws top for turn.
Responding to the to the first Rishadan's port.
He'll float white.
See Talia coming back down. He used Krakus to... Oh no, Krakus was tapped by the Rishadan port, of course. And so now, yeah, Entreat the Angels for...
So white, white, and X. It's probably going to leave one up. Oh no, he's just going
he's
to go
all in.
all in.
Is that 3 Angels? I believe, and it looks like... So he's tapped out now, and with a 1-drop on top. So if Sammy draws Sword of Fire and Ice...
Just an angel can block. It's blue and red, sword and fire. And ice.
but he can give it prot white with Mother of Runes.
True story.
So yeah, a sword wins the game. I'm not sure if there's...
Sword of fire and ice. 1-drop on top.
Umzawa's Jit won't get there. I don't believe he has... With a land in hand, he can Batter Skull, play and equip. But I believe they are his only... And he doesn't have a land in hand. So yeah, Sword of Fire and Ice
Batterskull
appears to be
playing
the only out here.
to Tali. Does he have enough mana for that?
He does not.
Okay. Oh no, he's 1 short.
Yes, a sword... Actually 2 short because of Talia.
Correct.
So yeah, the Sword of Fire and Ice, the only out. And by the fact that Sammy hasn't slammed it into play, I believe we may be going on to game 2 now. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that... Yeah, Flicker Wisp can eat one of the tokens, but that still leaves 3 very lethal flyers. So a bit unfortunate here. If Sammy had not drawn quite so many lands, he might have been able to finish off Jeremy, but looks like the Miracles Dex was just able to stabilize and draw the crucial Entreat the Angels in time. So with the post-board changes, I think I would have to give the advantage to Jeremy. It seems like he's getting a lot more impactful cards than Sammy is. What do you think?
Yeah, I think definitely he gets a lot more of the more impactful cards. Though, to be fair, Sammy does get some really good cards. He's going to, like, Cataclysm. He can definitely operate on 1 mana. 1 Aether Vial on 2. So, a Rishadan Port and Aether Vial on 2. Whereas, if that resolves, Jeremy basically can't win.
Yeah.
So if he's got a Revoker on top, an Aether Vial on 2, and a Port or a Wasteland, Jeremy's not going to do it. So I think that's going to be one of the key cards coming in as well as the Spirit of the Labyrinth, just to stop down the top shenanigans.
Yeah, especially if in the early turns, if Jeremy goes for a Jace or something like that, then it's an easy opportunity for Sammy to sneak through a Cataclysm and really cripple Jeremy and get ahead, especially if he gets an Aether Vial down early.
Yeah. Jeremy, I think, is also in a very comfortable position just due to tournament logistics. We've only got 14 minutes left in the round, and he's up a game, and he's a notoriously slow deck and hard to kill for Sammy.
Yeah, quite often the Miracles decks will win a match 1-0 due to going to time just by virtue of how many decisions you have to make with that deck and how long they can prolong the game.
How long you can prolong the game and how long it takes them to win, even if they're in I need to win right now mode.
Yeah, it's quite often that people will play just far too long against Miracles when the game is over and they should have conceded X turns ago. But Sammy wasn't quite in that position that game, and even on the last turn, he still had
one out.
Still had one out, so it was unfortunate that it took up so much of the round time.
You've got to expect that Reb to come out, though.
Yeah, that seems like an absolute free roll. Reb obviously being incredibly powerful in a lot of other matchups in Legacy, but not quite against the All Plains deck.
Particularly against the big mana blue decks that are currently, going all the way through Legacy, particularly the Show and Tells. If they're bringing in an Omniscience, if they're bringing in the Show and Tell itself, Dig Through Time, Reb is an amazing answer against that.
So we hear from Table 2 that Matt Vaughn has taken down Ricardo Brigado 2-1 after losing Game 1. The Burn deck is able to tower over the Shardless Bug Delver.
Yes, the Bug Delver not really having much in terms of weight, not much in terms of cards in the sideboard to fight the Burn deck. Did the Burn deck bring in any Price of Progress?
It doesn't appear. There's none in the board, but 4 in the main.
4 in the main, yeah. That is an absolute killer card against Shardless Bug. And Shardless Agent, though, coming back. I've noticed ever since the Treasure Cruise restriction, Shardless Agent is getting played a lot more.
Well, yes, you can afford to run more cards that interact positively with the Shardless Agent now, and it just seems it's always been a popular card that people enjoy playing. And yeah, with the burn heavy Treasure Cruise Delver decks out of favor, it's a better time to do the sort of grindy value Tarmogoyf Deathbright Shaman games.
Talia being forced.
Yeah, so a good play from Jeremy being able to keep that incredibly detrimental Talia off the battlefield, and now he is able to get a Divining Top down with the mana to activate. So Sammy not having an Aether Vial here, he's forced to cast these creatures. And he has a Phyrexian Revoker that will attempt to name Sensei Divining Top unless Jeremy can find a second Force of Will. I think I saw a second Mother of Runes in Sammy's hand there.
Interesting he would have kept so many of them in. I would expect that to be one of the cards more easily cut.
It's quite possible, but blanking Swords to Plowshares is very relevant, as that card can severely hinder your progress. And we see a Serra Avenger coming down. Again, another one that could have potentially been taken out, but and a Terminus is being revealed.
No, with no top being able to activate, just finding it naturally in the top 3 in response to the...
Yeah, it was a perfect time. It's absolutely backbreaking for Sammy. Now Vendilion Clique coming down in the draw step. We'll see everything that Sammy's got going on, which is obviously not a lot after getting 3 for 1 by that Terminus.
Flicker Wisp, not going to do much. It's just a 3-1 flyer.
Yeah, if you're not rebuying an effect or taking out a token or blanking an opponent's blocker, then Flicker Wisp isn't having a massive effect on the battlefield. So how can Sammy get back into this game from this point, do you think?
Again, the cards I was talking about earlier are not really relevant at this point. Even the Cataclysm, not an amazing card. Containment Priest shutting down that Aether Vial.
Yes, a very powerful play. Forcing Sammy to, again, interact with Jeremy's counterspells. We see a Revoker off the top for Sammy.
Just trading 3 for 3 currently.
Which is definitely advantageous for Sammy, but unfortunately at this point it really seems like he's going to struggle to be able to get enough creatures in play to deal enough damage to win this game.
With the Revoker in play, naming top, I keep saying it, but I think it's a very important card in the matchup. Cataclysm coming down, he can keep the Revoker on top, he can keep the Vial, he can keep a land, and then Jeremy's going to have to choose between the Click and the Containment Priest. If he chooses the Click, he can still keep the beats going, but if he chooses the Containment Priest, it locks out the Vial, so that would be an interesting decision there.
But again, he's going to have to try and get that Cataclysm through the counter magic that Jeremy could easily have in hand in the form of it.
Blocking the Containment Priest, allowing top to run. Very interesting. I think that means he's probably got a Vial. Something to do with the Vial?
Yeah, it's quite possible. Oh, and a second Vendilion Click is coming down. Ledger rolling the first and seeing a Flicker-Wisp which gets taken away. Yeah, I guess Sammy just realizes that, or figures that his Aether Vial is more important to him than the Divining Top is to his opponent.
Not liking his top cards?
Yeah, see a fetch to look at a new top 3.
Both players hellbent at this point, I think. No, Jeremy has 1.
Yeah, and this situation obviously favours the player with the Sensei's Divining Top far more than the player that has a deck full of small creatures. Oh, we do see the Monastery Mentor came in. I suppose that
with
gives
the top there, so he can make a token every turn. Prowess it.
Yeah, I guess that gives him a way to interact with the creatures on the battlefield, to block and trade and potentially even race. Yeah, that seems like it's a lot stronger than anything Sammy has going on at the moment.
I'm going to expect an upkeep activation of top. Draw the top, play it just to get a token.
It depends on his top card, I guess, and he has decided not to do that. Monastery Mentor swinging in.
Brainstorm in response or something.
Surely a Swords.
Oh, he's going to pro-white it anyway, so the Swords is irrelevant at this point.
You'd pro-white in response to the activation. There's no point attacking if you don't have a Swords. And it looks like he just... I don't know if that was a...
Did the same thing again.
Yeah. A check or Aether's Will and Canonist coming in, but at this point, Jeremy's not overly fussed by that.
It means the prowess tokens are not, or the prowess is not going to be too effective at this point.
Not incredibly effective, and I don't know if Jeremy has fully thought about the activating event Sensei's Divining Top every turn, but I would like that line a lot more than
Yeah, it just seems he could have 3 tokens in play at this point.
Yeah, which seems a lot better than not having 3 tokens.
And it's not like Samuel's running Mental Misstep here.
No, of course, there's no reason not to do it unless you're using the mana for something else.
Unless he's just trying to hope to make a 4/4.
Or
a number of 4/4s.
Yeah, it's possible, but he didn't last turn. So, yeah, not sure exactly what's on top of Jeremy's deck, but it's certainly not a Sensei's Divining Top. And Cavern of Souls, again, just another blank at this point for Sammy.
It does allow him to now play a Talia or something, because the Aether Vial is at 3.
True, which he can protect with the Mother of Runes, but at this... Well, to be honest, he's not being pressured as much as he could be by that Monastery Mentor if the Sensei's Divining Top was going up and coming down again every turn.
Yeah, he would be having 2 2/2s attacking this turn. He could, as with every turn, do the...
So we see a second...
He can with 2 tops here, he can make a prowess token just by tapping and replaying a top for every mana
he has. Mana, yeah. But again, he's choosing not to do that. And it's such a safe high life total, you feel like a ratchet bomb has been brought in by Sammy. Well, that will cause the tokens to not reach too critical mass.
Still, last turn, he could have had another 4 tokens, even if the bomb blew them right then. This turn he makes 5.
Exactly. I feel like he should be swinging for lethal this turn and then lethal again next turn, or
Use a ratchet bomb.
something similar. And even with 2 Divine Tops out, Jeremy's happy to just sit and wait. You see an end of turn Brainstorm and a Disenchant in Sammy's hand, which does not fight the good fight.
His, Monastery Mentor to make a token.
It does appear that he made that particular decision here. Jeremy having a real aversion to Monastery Mentor tokens, but we do see a Entreat the Angels coming down.
Against the Ratchet Bomb. He's just Brainstorm to Entreat against the Ratchet Bomb.
So there are 4 Angels coming into play. And again, no Monastery Mentor triggers have been announced. But this will pressure Sammy into activating his Ratchet Bomb.
Oh, he was going to do that any time that there was a bunch of tokens in play.
He certainly was. We see a second different different edition Mother of Runes coming down.
Oh, damn, we know the white deck is right. The mono white deck's playing 4.
So obviously Sammy is forced to crack the Ratchet Bomb.
He's also attacked with the Mentor, which means he can gang block.
He attacked with the Mentor?
He can now gang block double pro.
This is just a 2/2 Mentor, right? At this point?
Yes. There has been no non-creature spells cast this turn.
So he can block with everything, wait for Jeremy to order blockers, and then he potentially won't even... Unless Jeremy can... Oh, he's choosing not to block with the second Mother, only playing around... Oh, well, there's Aetherworn Canonist out, so he only needs to play around one spell. I feel like I would have blocked with the second Mother as well.
Oh, he can't cast the Brainstorm.
Oh, he can't cast Brainstorm. No, Entreat the Angels was last turn, right?
Oh, yes, it was.
He hasn't cast a spell this turn yet.
So we have a 3/3 Mentor.
How do you feel about activating the Prowess triggers in this particular situation?
Prowess triggers?
For the Brainstorm?
Mostly irrelevant. It's going to be a 3/3 and he can block, protect both his creatures.
Yeah, but Jeremy missed another
Missed making another token.
Missed making another token. And so...
Can we get a missed trigger?
Wait, how's he making a token, though?
Okay, he's doing it off the Brainstorm.
But he'd already drawn cards. That's Brainstorm resolving.
He puts the trigger on the stack, resolves the Brainstorm, resolves the token trigger. So he said, I'll make a token. Brainstorm, token.
Okay, so I guess if he verbally acknowledged it, sure.
He can't cast that. There's a...
Oh dear. Aetherworn Canonist is doing a lot of secretive work at this point. So the 3/3...
You may not cast any more non-creature spells, Jeremy.
Non-artifact spells.
Non-artifact spells.
How is the Mother dying?
He's choosing not to make it pro-white.
He didn't activate that Mother, did he?
He activated the top one to protect the
Aetherworn Canonist,
and then just chose not to activate the second. Did he cast it that turn?
He might have cast it that turn, yes. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, he did cast the Mother that turn.
I really feel here that Jeremy should have won this game.
Oh, he should have won this
by
game
now, if not
quite a while ago. I feel Jeremy's still very...
Non-creature?
No way. He gets caught on Canonist again. Blocking out the path, eating the Vendilion Clique. I think Sammy is still behind here, but actually with the Mirror Crusader down and the swords he still has the Swords to Plowshares in hand, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so he will be able to swords the Mirror Crusader on his turn as his own, unless he does something else first.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy.
We're in turn 2 of extra turns at this point, I believe.
So let's see.
And we see a Terminus is drawn.
I think that's game, set, and match 101 to
That
Jeremy.
it does seem like Jeremy has outplayed Sammy, and
But Canonist has outplayed Jeremy.
certainly. And so the Terminus resolves. Yeah, with only 2 turns left, I don't think there's any way that Sammy's going to be able to deal the final 14 to Jeremy.
Tap put in Mirren Crusader for Samuel's turn. End of turn. Play and equip Batterskull somehow. 7/7.
Yep, that would get there if it were possible. But yeah, Sammy extends the hand, and that's Jeremy taking down the match
1/0/1
with Miracles. A very, very strong deck at the moment, being able to play just so many counterspells, and the counterbalance being not good in this matchup, but against a lot of the combo decks and other decks that can really lock people out.
Yeah, I think Jeremy definitely there was trying to got a little bit flustered under the camera.
Yeah, it's quite possible, and getting near the end of the round, trying to play fast.
He definitely had that game, so I think he did win the first game. In the second game, he did win that again due to time. But if he had made the correct plays, it would have been a 2-0 victory to him. So being flustered there, making those mistakes, has meant that he's only hurt his own breakers.
Yeah,
He's got the win. He would have had the win playing correctly, I believe. So he's only hurt his own breakers, but he got the win in the end.
Yeah, so Sammy moving to 2-1, Jeremy moving to 3-0. Sammy still in contention, obviously, for the top 8, and Jeremy in a good position with 3 rounds to go to be able to possibly draw in the last few rounds. We're getting pairings right now for the next round,
and we'll see who's playing. Then, if you've just tuned in, you're watching Next Level Games' Eternal Masters event, the Legacy, hosted by Sneak and Show. And very soon we're going to find our round 4, is it?
Yeah, round 4 now.
Round 4 pairings. We'll probably get the 4-0 matches. There's still a couple of those. But we'll see what happens as soon as they come up.
Yeah, I imagine we'll just go for tables 1 and 2.
Yep. We may get Sammy again. If so, we'll put him on table 2.
Yeah, for sure. Have a look at some of the other decks.
Yep, no. So if we are looking at a 4-0, that table 2 may be Sammy versus Burn. So Death and Taxes versus Burn.
Jeremy versus Burn.
They're both 4-0. Oh, Jeremy, sorry. Jeremy versus Miracles versus Burn. How do you think that matchup's going to go if that is one of the pairings?
I've played that matchup a bit, and it's very tough, very close, and really draw dependent on both decks. Although, with the move to the 4 Price of Progress from Burn, that does favour the Miracles deck a lot, considering it's running so many basics.
Yeah, definitely, and the having so many basics there is obviously a help. It's also kind of a hindrance in that he can get, unlikely, he can get mana screwed a little bit more easily. And then having an Eilidon and not having the white source for the swords, meaning that any top's going to cost him 2 life, any brainstorm trying to find that white source is going to cost him 2. I think Eidolon is one of the big things in that matchup.
Yeah, Eidolon is a massive card in pretty much every format of Magic at the moment. And we saw in the last match against Sammy that being constrained on his coloured mana in the early turns can be very, very detrimental for the Jeremy's blue-white control deck, and especially Sammy wasn't really able to punish that.
Yeah, he wasn't able to take advantage of his opponent tripping up by laying more pressure onto his opponent. The Vendilion Clique took the Flicker Wisp out of his hand, and then he just had no creatures and proceeded to draw land.
If you stumble against a mono red deck, though, they're not going to give you the opportunity to draw out of that mana screw, and they're just going to bury you very quickly with cards like Eidolon and Goblin Guide, and then even a Sensei's Divining Top in the mono red deck.
Well, in your later turns, you definitely don't want to be drawing those lands. So if you are empty-handed, I'd rather be empty-handed with a Sensei's Divining Top on the field than not. Don't know if it's worth playing just over another Lightning Bolt variant.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's not something I've seen in out of burn decks at all. But I guess it's working okay for Matthew so far as he's moved to 4-0. Burn, one of those decks that can definitely have good tournaments or bad tournaments depending on how prepared your opponents are for it.
Yep, he is going for He is running both the Grim Lavamancer and the Sulfuric Vortex here. He's going for a bit of a longer game for the burn deck, also with the Sensei's Divining Top. Getting those cards that can get the final damage down, even through something like a Counterbalance Lock, which can hurt the burn deck if it hits that really early. Also, I'm a big fan of the Barbarian Ring.
Yeah, the one of Barbarian Ring is also not a card I've seen heaps, but again, getting value out of your lands in the late game can be very important, and the Grim Lavamancers I like at the moment with the popularity of both Monastery Mentor and Delver. There's a lot of good targets for that.
It's amazing against Deathrite Shaman if you can start just having a permanent onboard thing if they don't have the ability to activate it. Fantastic. We do have 2 tables organised. We're going to see exactly what they are in a couple of minutes as soon as the floor gets the camera down to them. But it'll be an interesting match, I think. Who do we still have at the top of our standings here? Okay, so our top of the standings, if we look, Chris Addy versus Jin Poon.
No, it's alphabetical.
3. Oh, no. So our 6 points, Thomas Rebay.
And 6 points is 2-2. This is round 4, so we want the 9 points.
Okay, we've got 9s here. Owen, Richard, and Matthew Vaughan. Matthew Vaughan we saw last time. He was on the burn deck.
Yep.
And Richard Owen, he's down on Jund Depths. So Jund Depths is 3-0 after 3 rounds. And our other 4-0 match is Rob Gascard on Rug Delver. So that's Canadian Threshold, Nimble Mongoose, and all that. Against Dominic M. Berg Delver, so Rug Delver versus Berg Delver. Now, if I remember correctly, that deck's the one running... I'm going to pull it out. The new Megamorph card from Khans that has Trample. And
the Megamorph card with Trample?
From Khans. It's like a 3 cost, or it unmorphs for 3, and it's a... something Wrangler, Gurlig...
I'm not sure.
Let me try and pull that out.
I feel like I'd like to see the Delver mirror.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty interesting.
Not quite a mirror, but Dominic M. Let me pull out that list.
Well, they both have Delvers. Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to get a look at both of the matchups, as the Jund Depths deck also sounds interesting. Dark Depths is a card that has been seeing a lot more play after the printing of Thespian Sage.
Of course.
So I believe our rounds will be starting soon. Can we go to a table soon?
I believe they're just pushing them over, and it'll come up as soon as possible. Brandon Owen, James O'Brien. Who was I actually looking for? Something M.
Yeah. So against the Dark Depths deck, though, the 4 Price of Progress are going to be very, very good. Typically hitting for a large amount of damage.
Gurmag Angler.
Oh, Delve, not Megamorph.
Delve, sorry.
And it doesn't have Trample.
Doesn't it?
And it doesn't cost 3.
I'm going to ignore everything that I've said.
Right, so here we see Rob Gascard versus Dom. Dom being a veteran of the Melbourne scene. I've definitely lost to him many a time. Very recently, actually, he dismantled me in Highland, and it was very, very painful.
Okay, so we're just pulling those lists out now for you, be able to run them through. Unfortunately, I was looking at that list just then when I pulled out the Gurmag Angler. And Rob Gascard.
Alright, so Dom running 1 True Name, 4 Deathrights, Pyroblast, 4 Days, 4 Delver, 4 Ponder, 2 Gurmag Angler, 4 Brainstorm, 3 Young Pyromancer, 2 Dig Through Time, 3 Gitaxian Pro, 1 Forkbolt, and a Spell Pierce. So
okay, and our Rob Gascard is actually running a Rug Delver with his flex spot. He's not running the full set of... he doesn't have any of the Gitaxian Probes, which we're used to in the current builds of Rug Delver. He's got, for the flex slots, he's put in Preordains, Ponders, and 2 Dismembers, and going up to the full 4 Spell Pierce. So that's a very interesting.
It'd be interesting to see how those Dismembers play out in this matchup, as 4 life is a very, very legitimate cost against a deck that has as many creatures and damage as this one.
He did just see it. Dom here has Gitaxian probed and seen the stifle,
Okay.
and very wisely chooses to not activate his fetch land.
Yes, we enter an interesting little sub-game now where Dom will attempt to not get Stone Rained.
1 blue Stone Rain.
Very powerful, but Rob's all on fetch lands himself, so now that there's 2 fetch lands, he can crack one of his safely to find the land, and then Dom can't crack in response because then he'll crack his second land in response and use the stifle. So Dom's doesn't have a Delver on turn 1, so it's probable that he's only got sort of 2 mana threats, or
Young
Pyromancer, or maybe even that Gurmag Angler, and this stifle's really going to slow down his progress. And we see, yeah, he's opting to just make Rob use it as fast as possible, which is definitely the better play. He's not going to be able to, the stifle is going to get one of his lands at this point, and he just needs to let it happen and continue to develop his resources.
Not seeing a second stifle there.
A second stifle there would have been incredibly hard for Dom to deal with, but only setting him back 1 land. See an Underground Sea coming down. So Dom really would like to get a Deathrite Shaman out and be able to get ahead on resources and then potentially start doing Young Pyromancer into a few spells. It's quite possible he doesn't have Young Pyromancer, as maybe he would have held the Gitaxian Probe to trigger the Young Pyromancer if he had access to that.
Deathrite Shaman also allows him to get up into the True Name Nemesis with Spell Pierce backup. True Name Nemesis an absolutely house in this matchup. The Goyfs can't block it, the Nimble Mongoose can't block it. Delver can only hope to race it. It plays very well on offense and defense, and the Rug deck just has no outs to a resolved. It can only race.
And that's exactly what you want in these sort of Delver mirrors, is you can switch very quickly between being on offense and defense, and having a card that is fantastic in both of those situations is very key to winning the game. So a Dismember just hit. Oh, was that a Thought Scour?
No, that was a Dismember on the Deathrite. Rob
okay.
taking the 4 life to go with the 2 fetches, down to a very low life against Dom, who's definitely running the all the Bolt package.
But now Rob getting a Tarmogoyf down, which is is very big and imposing on this otherwise empty board.
We've got land, sorcery, instant for the stifle. Do we have any... Oh, and the creature, so it's a 4/5 there at least. Turning that into a 4-turn clock for Dom, unless he can put another creature down.
Yeah, and what sort of answers does Dom have to a resolved Tarmogoyf? It seems...
Gurmag Angler can be bigger.
It
Delver
can.
flies over it, and again, that True Name Nemesis can just sit there. And
at this point, though, a Delver's not going to race the Tarmogoyf as it's already resolved, but a Gurmag Angler can also exile all the cards from Dom's graveyard, potentially shrinking the Goyf. We see another Deathrite Shaman coming down, also has the potential to shrink the Goyf, although at a much slower rate. And then a cracked fetch land. Dom with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards in his graveyard, so he can't cast Gurmag Angler right now, especially not off a Volcanic Island. And it is a Delver of Secrets coming down.
there is a creature in the yard, so the Deathrite does have all his modes active if he does get to untap with it, meaning he can gain the life, he can drain Rob, just depending on what he wants to do at this particular point. Bear in mind, if that Tarmogoyf is a 4/5, Dom is racing him at 5 damage back for only every 4 that Rob's throwing at him.
If he can flip the Delver this turn, that is.
If he can flip the Delver.
And again, it depends if that is assuming Rob doesn't do anything with his cards in hand or mana on this turn. And we see an end of turn Brainstorm from Dom, which will be responded by a Spell Pierce. So Dom was hoping to set up the Delver of Secrets.
Rob with the
trigger.
full 4 Spell Pierces.
And is there a second Spell Pierce here, I'd imagine? It is possible that Rob did not realize that Deathrite Shaman did not have Summoning Sickness. Does the Deathrite Shaman have Summoning Sickness? Yes, because he So he cast Delver and then he cast Brainstorm this turn. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the Spell Pierce being paid for, and Rob deciding to use a second Spell Pierce. And this is upkeep. And the Delver of Secrets is flipped anyway, a natural flip from Dom. I'm not sure exactly what he chose to reveal. He's wastelanding Rob off green, attacking in with Delver, and he is definitely pulled considerably ahead at this point. Although the Tarmogoyf is still keeping Rob in this race if he can try and deal with the active Delver of Secrets. But he just passes the turn back. We see Dom draw, and now he's in a very commanding position with active Delver and Deathrite Shaman and access to nearly all his colours of mana.
Yep, and just to double check on the second game, that game is actually in fact between Miracles and Omnitel.
Miracles and Omnitel.
That'll be another lovely slow game.
Yeah, I'm sure this match will be finished very fast, and we'll be able to go and see how Game 1 is going. So the Deathrite Shaman's being activated.
Getting lots and lots of work out of that Deathrite Shaman.
So we see a Force of Will exiling Spell Pierce. That was confusingly laid out. This is on the Young Pyromancer, and a Brainstorm from Dom in response, trying to find his own force to get that Young Pyromancer into play, as making a token every turn to block the Tarmogoyf will make this a very easy race to win for him in the air.
Yes. However, if it doesn't, that Tarmogoyf is a 2-hit kill, meaning that the Deathrite or the Insectile Aberration will need to stay back at some point.
Yes, it's quite possible that he'll need to start chump. He can take a hit and then next turn block with the Deathrite Shaman, gain 2 life, and that buys him another turn in the race. But again, it depends on...
If he has a Bolt in hand, he swings and drains next turn, putting his opponent to 5, and then he drains on the block. Yeah, so if he has the Bolt, I think he doesn't need to worry about that.
A Bolt, yes, would put the game away, but then he could put himself dead to a Bolt from Rob.
True.
And it looks like he's going to be dead if Rob does have access to a Bolt, although you've got to assume if you're Dom that with access to a Lightning Bolt, Rob would have killed the Delver or the Deathrite many, many turns ago, so it would be off the top.
Yep, no Spell Pierce or anything here. He could be holding the Force of Will.
So you see Tarmogoyf coming in. Well, again, if he had a Force of Will, yeah, he would have countered the Force of Will on his Young Pyromancer. And a Nimble Mongoose makes Rob hellbent. So Dom's got 5 damage here.
He's going to swing for 3.
And he's got the Lightning Bolts.
Eat the Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, swing. Rob is making him... Oh, he's going for a second Lightning Bolt instead of using the Deathrite Shaman activation. He decides to show Rob how many of these he still has.
Still had all these.
Alright, so maybe if we go to the second table now, we can have a look at the blue-white versus... What was the second deck again?
Blue-white versus blue-white, or Omnitel, sorry. Omnitel versus Miracles. And this particular Omnitel deck is going for the Cunning Wish into Release the Ants version. So we're not going for the... Okay, so we are sideboarding in the other game. Omnitel is 1-up. So what do you think? He's not bringing in the... Because he is using the Release the Ants version with the Emrakul, he's definitely not playing for... He doesn't need to worry about bringing in removal. The Swords to Plowshares are just straight dead. The only creatures in his opponent's deck are the Emrakul. Swords still are bad against the Laboratory Maniac version, but at least they have some game and can be kept in. But because of this, they're definitely going to be cut from the Miracles deck. Miracles doesn't seem to have an absolutely fantastic day against the Omnitel. Omnitel's just a little too quick for them, especially if they've got the Ancient Tomb package.
Yeah, like I guess he's just trying to assemble his countertop as fast as he can, but even that can be too slow against a deck that can potentially turn to Show and Tell in Omniscience. So
And he's only going to have 3. He's only got 3 costs for the actual Show and Tell itself. He's got the 2 clicks and the Entreat the Angels itself.
mate, that's Joe Fox, right? Oh yeah, that's Joe's playing Omnitel. Cool, I see. Alright, so shuffling up, it looks like we will be back into Game 2 very soon.
Yep, so this is being held at Next Level Games. It's being streamed by Sneak and Show. It's going to be... We're down here in Melbourne, so we've got 67 players here for our Legacy event. This is round 4. And the 4 guys you're looking at here are our... I believe they're our only undefeateds at this point.
Yeah, from a quick glance, I believe...
No, we've got a third one. No, 4 tables here. Undefeated. So we've got at least 3 Delver decks going undefeated into the first 4 rounds.
Yeah, and with the potential in a 6 round, assuming this is going to be a 6-round event, winning this round, they could potentially try and double ID into the top 8. So definitely a very important match for all of these guys.
Yeah, being able to double ID, especially as double IDs will quite often put you in the 3rd to 5th. Being on the play in at least the top 8 match is very, very important.
Yeah, certainly, especially with these sort of Delver resource denial decks that are being able to play a Delver and then start wastelanding your opponent from turn 2 is very, very advantageous on the play as opposed to the draw.
Yeah, particularly those running the Stifle package. Being able to not allow your opponent even their first land drop is very important.
Yeah, so it looks like Dom and Rob are about ready to go as we come back to the overhead cam. So we see in Rob's sideboard he has an Emrakul, which I imagine he won't be bringing in here, but that's a spicy little one to bring in against the Show and Tell decks.
I remember doing that against back when I was playing Goblins. I used to bring in Angel of Despair against the Show and Tell decks. Hopefully, just destroy whatever they put into play.
But 3 red elemental blasts will be very strong, and 2 Price of Progress could potentially come in as well to try and play who has the greedy mana base.
And Legacy, again, Gush not legal. It makes Price of Progress a very, very nice card, forcing them to waste themselves if they want to save the life from a Price of Progress.
And sometimes to save 4 life, it's definitely worth it to waste yourself. So we see a Brainstorm here from Dom in response to a Wasteland activation, and it's quite likely that'll get Spell Pierced here, considering that Rob has access to 4 of those, and I'd imagine he'd leave them in. And this puts Rob in a pretty good spot, 2 lands to 0 and denying a Brainstorm. In fact, it could even be so important that Dom might try and fight over it, but no, he's going to let it resolve. Would have been fantastic to have a Daze there, actually.
Oh no, that is a Spell Pierce. So Brainstorm did get Spell Pierced.
Yeah, so Brainstorm got Spell Pierced and Dom chose not to fight over it. But yeah, can you imagine if Dom had a Daze there, he would have been able to bounce his land back to hand, counter the Wasteland, and counter the Spell Pierce, letting his Brainstorm resolve.
Correct. Sorry, I was still thinking of Stifle there, thinking there was a Stifle involved, but no Stifle was involved.
Luckily, Dom's got another land, so he's not going to get completely screwed. And we'll still be able to cast some spells.
No Deathrite, only went and got the Volcanic.
Yeah, not on this turn anyway. And a Brainstorm, actually. I was expecting a Delver there, but that is met with its own Daze. So both players operating on very few resources at this point. Each trying to see who's going to run out of lands or spells first. Preordain coming down from Rob to try and keep the flow of gas coming.
Preordain a kind of unusual choice for the sorcery. Obviously he wants his the sorcery for his Goyfs, but a lot of decks changed that over to the preordained slots to Gitaxian probes a while back. It's very odd to see the preordains coming back.
Yeah, the 2-2 split on Preordain on Ponder is also a bit baffling to me. I feel like if for your deck, one of those should be better than the other, but...
Young Pyromancer getting dazed again.
What, second days? But again, like, Dom's pulling ahead in... Like, those dazes have definitely put Rob behind as far as land drops go, so it's possible Dom will be able to leverage that advantage in order to try and get ahead, and a Deathrite Shaman is going to put him further ahead in mana.
Not wanting to get dazed again.
Yeah, it's possible in this matchup especially that both players should be playing around days slightly more than they are. Like, I bring up again, like, if Dom had that daze on turn 1, then it would have been an incredibly game-breaking play.
Unfortunately, he chose not to cast it, or he simply drew it on turn 2 to protect against the second Brainstorm.
See Rob fetching a land here and potentially playing a Goyf, I'd imagine, or I guess taking out the... It looks like he's going to be bolting the Deathrite Shaman to keep Dom off any pressure. And a Nimble Mongoose is coming down.
With Threshold. Days number 3?
Not at this point, and Young Pyromancer is very good here, although you've got to wonder how many resources Dom has left to trigger it, with 2 Brainstorms being counted already. Those being the the preferred methods of triggering Young Pyromancer in order to find more gas for it. Is the Nimble Mongoose active at this point?
Yes, it is a 3/3. He's got the Wasteland, the 2 Dazes, Spell Pierce, and I believe 2 fetch lands. Rough and Tumble.
Rough and Tumble. Could you quickly explain Rough and Tumble for the viewers at home that can't quite read it on screen?
Oh, if I can't quite read it, I believe it's Pyroclasm, or deals 6 damage to every creature with flying.
Pyromancer for this stage, but an interesting
And any
one.
tokens it should he have chosen to create them.
Yeah, whilst avoiding, so it only hits ground creatures, the first mode.
I believe so.
So that avoids every creature in the Rug deck not hitting Delver, Tarmogoyf, or Nimble Mongoose. So a very interesting card, and very good in this matchup.
Yes, Rough and Tumble was brought in the Rug Delver matchup back in 2000. Pyroclasm for non-flyers. Thank you, Page side.
And so a second Nimble Mongoose coming down to really put a lot of pressure on Dom to try and find an answer. But he has managed to resolve a dig through time, so we'll see with access to 2 new cards how Dom's going to be able to deal with the 3/3 Hexproof Onslaught.
Being able to deal... He can get guys who are bigger. Gurmag Angler, though he has just delved away a lot of his graveyard. That's definitely there. The True Name can block it indefinitely, and Young Pyromancer can create tokens, but I don't think he has any ways of actually physically removing them from the battlefield now that they're here.
So Daxian Probe reveals a second Rough and Tumble as the only card in Rob's hand. And Dom not being incredibly decisive after his dig through time could be indicative of...
I believe he's going to try and waste the Wasteland here. I assume he's grabbed business spells and really doesn't want to be taken off his colours.
It's possible, but maybe taking Rob off a colour could be even more advantageous. But no, yeah, he has decided to take the Wasteland, especially considering that Rob only has access to that 1 Rough and Tumble at this point. Although on a 3-turn clock, Dom definitely needs to try and make a bigger creature.
2-turn clock now.
True Name Nemesis comes down now. That is fantastic.
And Rough and Tumble not going to do anything.
Certainly not. Assuming that Dom chose Rob with the target from True Name.
Yeah, Rob definitely needing... He's only got 4 bolts for reach here, so he needs either Delver or Bolt.
Yeah, so you can put Dom to 5, but from there he's definitely going to need a bit more.
That is a Tarmogoyf that he's just brainstormed into at the bottom.
Yes, Tarmogoyf, very strong. Although...
sorry, Price of Progress can also do it if he's most likely boarded that in.
Yeah, Price of Progress would be a fantastic draw.
And Vendilion Click is also another flyer.
So he's definitely got a lot of live draws, and we'll see what he chooses to keep with this brainstorm. Dom, the true name, whilst being very good, it's certainly not enough to win this match on his own.
That is 1 Lightning Bolt in his hand, so Dom here is effectively at 2.
Very precarious situation. All those early dazes and resource trading were definitely in Rob's favour, and Dom's desperately been trying to claw his way back. Maybe if this true name had managed to come down a couple of turns ago before those Mongoose had gotten in, he'd be at a high enough life total to stabilise, but he's in a very precarious situation at the moment.
He does have the extra land, so he can swing, put him to 5, Bolt with Daze Protection here. Putting him to 2, and then he's just dead to so many draws.
Let me see, Rob's going to fire off the bolt straight away while Dom is tapped out and pass the turn back. So he chose to cash in the Mongoose that turn, and
we can see the true name won't be on the attack.
And then certainly not. Yeah, Dom hoping to find a Tarmogoyf here, or something similar, or a Deathrite Shaman would be fantastic in order to slowly claw your way back up.
Especially as the bolt has been spent going to the face. I expect we're going to see this Flooded Strand leave on the upkeep.
Yeah, you really need to, as Dom, it's going to take you so long to kill Rob that you basically use Deathrite Shaman to gain life, because there's no other way to gain life, and you're not going to be able to kill Rob realistically before he's able to deal those last 2 points of damage.
And he's probably going to be only 1 point of damage here. Fetch land down to 1. Though in this matchup, being on 1 and being on 2 is effectively the same thing. There's nothing in the deck that's only going to deal 1 damage to you. There's no tramplers that he's going to block, and the trample damage will go over.
Although now a non-flipped Delver off the top.
Oh, non-flipped.
Would be enough. And it does blank all the future fetches for the Dom might draw, although those are fairly big blanks at the moment anyway. So Wasteland will probably take out the red source, although with a Flooded Strand out, the decision is fairly arbitrary.
I expect Rob's Flooded Strand's going to be leaving in the upkeep anyway, because he has brainstormed last turn to put that brainstorm back.
And a Gomag Angler comes down, which is actually better than well, it's interesting compared to Tarmogoyf. It's definitely a better creature, but it does take out his whole graveyard, so he can't gain life with Deathrite Shaman anymore.
There is still a Nimble Mongoose in Rob's graveyard.
And Umezawa's Jit coming down, so Dom
needs this turn, and he knows what that top card is.
He definitely needs a couple of turns. So we see Rob drawing.
That needed to have been a burn spell. I don't think... If that's not a burn spell, I think Rob just lost this game based on not clearing the top of his library.
Oh, did he know the top card from Brainstorm?
Yeah, he brainstormed, bolted, played the Flooded Strand, passed the turn.
So you'd imagine it was a card that he wanted to keep. So we'll see exactly what it was soon. And yeah, Dom threatening to kill Rob very fast with his Gomag Angler true name and
it's
Jit.
not even the killing him quickly, it's that Jit's going to give him 4 life next turn.
Indeed.
Regardless of what it hits.
You'd imagine that if Rob isn't able to win the game right here, which he's not, and he can't block the true name, so it's definitely getting 2 counters on the Jit.
Yeah, Jit is just combat damage, it's not combat damage to a player.
Yeah.
Even if it hit the Tarmogoyf, he would still be able to gain life.
Yeah, so Dom looking like he might have pulled this one out. Although even with the 4 life gain from the Jit, if he attacks with the true name, then Rob can swing back, but if he swings back, he'll have his Tarmogoyf Ethan and only put Dom back down to 2.
Yeah.
Which is certainly not an exciting line. So we see the equip to True Name. And True Name attacking in.
New Umezawa's Jitte GP Sydney 2010 foil.
I believe that was the year, yes.
Okay, only 3 damage coming in, but those 2 counters representing an additional 4 life for Dom, meaning that Burn is further out of field.
So Rob swinging in, forcing... Oh, and he drew the Price of Progress. Oh!
Spell Pierce?
Does Dom have an answer?
Dom has 1 Spell Pierce. No. Game goes to 1-all.
Wow. That was an incredibly lucky top deck from Rob. Oh, man. I'm trying to think. So he did sort of shortcut. Dom did sort of shortcut there by removing both counters at once. And if he had have removed them one at a time, he could have Force of Willed the Price, which would have put him to 4.
Did he have Force in hand?
I'm not sure. He didn't.
Okay, he may have
really
had something
hand.
like in hand.
But he sort of acted like he definitely went to his hand quickly and then sort of rethought. And I was thinking maybe he realized that by removing both counters at the same time, he'd made it so he couldn't cast Force. That was potentially...
A Jace, 2 turns from Ultimate and a Omniscience opponent comboing out. 2 turns from Ultimate. He must... From what we can see, it looks like he was probably trying to keep him off business, just ticking up, trying to get it, only keep lands on top.
Definitely interesting board state to come into. You feel like having a Jace out for that long, you really should have been able to prevent your opponent from reaching this stage.
Release the ants. You reveal Emrakul, I reveal something that costs less than Emrakul.
Yeah, either by brainstorming or fate stealing, you'd think Jeremy would have been able to avoid this situation, but no.
And Joe Fox takes the entire game.
Moving to 4-0 with his Omniscience Show and Tell deck, which is one of the big players of this tournament and in many legacy tournaments the world over.
Yeah, going into this tournament, we did a quick count up of the decks, and the most played by far are Omniscience and Miracles at 6 and 5 apiece. The closest to that then is Death and Taxes at 4, but do you think that we just saw there, the end of that game, is indicative of what we're going to see for the rest of it? Do we think that Omniscience has the power to go through Miracles, even though it has numerically fewer players?
I do think that it's a very powerful deck, and you see here how many sideboard slots Joseph has that he wants to use against Jeremy, and there's a lot of the Red Elemental Blast, etc., very strong. And
bear in mind that at least 3 of those, or two of those at least, came in off the Cunning Wish.
Yeah, certainly. But yeah, the deck is very well set up to fight through counter spells, and it's just very powerful at this point in the format. And especially if you're experienced with the deck, it has a lot of play to it, and I think we will continue to see good pilots with it doing very well.
Yes, and another thing the Miracles has against it is the Miracles deck has a lot of board control that is mostly irrelevant.
Yeah, as a control deck in this format, you do face an issue where a lot of your cards are dead in a lot of matchups. So we're coming back to game 3 of Dom vs Rob. Dom being on the play, you'd imagine, is going to have a very big impact on how this game goes. You saw on the draw last game, he was on the back foot the entire game, and he'll be hoping to do the same to Rob and come out and put Rob immediately on the defensive.
Now he's definitely seen the... Now that he's definitely seen the Price of Progress, do you expect he's going to play a little bit... It's very hard because you've got to play against both Days and Price of Progress, and they're both tugging at you from 2 different directions.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't feel like it really affects your play at all. You know, you're still trying... Like, the deck only ever really wants to get 3 lands into play anyway, and it's not like you have any basics to search, so you're just going to play a typical game plan. And when it comes down to those sort of when you hit sub 8 life...
Rob looks like he's going to go down. I think that's 6 lands and a Spell Pierce.
but that he kept.
No, I think he's going to go down.
But Dom's
Dobbs keeping?
we're already playing. Like Dom's already
Oh.
fetching, so
Okay. Maybe I missaw
maybe
that,
there's a
but
Delver or something like 5 lands Delver, Spell Pierce or something. Although even that seems like
two of them were Wastelands, which facing a Delver, no, facing a Deathrite.
yeah. So Delver into Double Wasteland is, or Nimble Mongoose in Double Wasteland is a very strong start. Although Deathrite is a very good foil to that particular start. Rob Dunn won the Vintage event yesterday with Shops.
He was running the very similar to the Espresso Stacks list that top 4 GP Sydney last year. And all the vintage deck lists will be put up on the Mana Drain.
Yeah, it was a more traditional sort of smokestack deck than most of the shops that we saw yesterday. So Ponder from Dom. Looks like he's going to be keeping at this stage. Just trying to figure out exactly the order he wants them.
Is he digging for land here?
I'm not sure. Well, you'd imagine not.
Choosing not to play the second land does open him up to days.
He's got the Deathrite Shaman out.
Oh, true.
And he finds a Wasteland, which you'd imagine he's going to fire up straight away. And having a Delver here would be, or any other 1-drop would be incredibly strong.
No, he's already pondered, so he's got... Oh no, Deathrite. I need to play against the card more often. Yes, Swagrid, we do have a Highlander event tomorrow. It will also be streamed from round 1, round 2.
And we see a Brainstorm coming down off the Delver. This was after the Ponder Keep. So not an incredibly high value Brainstorm, but I guess Dom just wanting to try and press his advantage while he can.
He does have 2 Wastelands, as I said earlier, so even with the Deathrite, he can try and waste him off 2 to 3 sources. Against the Nimble Mongoose, it's not like he's going to be able to...
Rob has put his... Mark, you might want to say something. Rob's just put his Wasteland on top of his Tropical Island, but the Tropical Island's exiled, the Wasteland isn't. Maybe just stop the game or something to... Yeah, we see Rob realizing that made that error and correcting the board state.
Very important with the Deathrite Shaman there.
Definitely, very much so. Yeah, Dom wants to make sure that nothing goes to the exile zone unless he has caused it to go there.
Or it's a blue card.
Or it's a blue card. So, Deathrite Shaman now putting the Wasteland into exile. And a Tamagotchi coming down, or a Gurmag Angler coming down.
That's scary for Rob.
Yeah.
That's bigger than everything he's going to play. He's not going to be able to bolt it.
Yeah, again, in these mirrors, once a big creature comes down
He's put that card in exile again, Marco.
Yeah, once the creature has come down... Yeah, he hasn't set up his Graveyard Exile Zone very well, and he keeps confusing himself. Yeah, once a big creature hits the battlefield, there's really no way to deal with it for either of these decks.
Moving his exile zone as far away as possible.
Yeah, I can't... it's going to be a long way back from... although, unlike a lot of these decks, Rob does have access to 2 Dismembers that can take out the Gurmag Angler.
It's only 8 life.
Well, he doesn't need to do both. So, a Brainstorm coming in. I imagine the other cards he's trying to find at this stage, as a Tarmogoyf is very small at this point, with only a land in the graveyards. And the Daze countering that Brainstorm. Yeah, that is going to be very, very good for Dom.
But at least Rob has the land advantage.
Rob does have the land advantage, although only very briefly. So your Flooded Strand coming down, and it's cracking it instantly, so I guess he's playing another threat.
Yeah, I think jamming threats here is all he needs to do.
Oh, yeah.
If there's a young Pyromancer, another Deathrite, anything here is just going to speed the game up. Is going to negate all those possible draw steps that Rob has.
There's certainly nothing he needs to play around either. No Supreme Verdict, etc. coming out of the Delver decks. And it looks like he was just playing around the Stifle. Getting land on his turn. Unfortunately, that does not play around the wasteland that Rob has. The third wasteland, is that? Or
That's only the second.
only
this
the
game.
second? And in response, we're going to see a lightning bolt come out. Interesting that he fires it off straight away, but I guess he wants to leave his Deathrite Shaman to be able to drain or potentially cast a threat off the top.
Mm-hmm. Though there are now 4 lands in the graveyard, so Deathrite's not running out of juice anytime soon.
Yeah,
in
for
terms
sure.
of mana.
And again, I guess Bolt's only target, apart from the face, is a Delver of Secrets, and that's not really a big concern with Gurmag Angler coming out.
The card at the top right is a Gurmag Angler. Do you want to explain what a Gurmag Angler is?
Gurmag Angler, those of you that Fate Reforged draft will be very familiar with, is a 7 mana 5/5, 6 on a black with Delve. And that is all its abilities. All it has is big. And you can see here that being a 5/5 for essentially 1 mana is very good in this format. Especially in a deck that fills its graveyard as fast as Delver does. So another land coming down for Rob and just passing it back. And again, really, those dismembers, the only way for him to interact positively with that Gurmag Angler, like a Tarmogoyf, is just very small at this point. The Nimble Mongoose is, again, another 1/1. And it looks like this Gurmag Angler might just be shutting the door. An interesting tech from Dom. Not sure how many decks are splashing the Gurmag Angler.
Well, it is a good point that a lot of the Bug and Berg used to play the Tombstalker, which is a 5/5, so it is a little bit smaller, but it also has flying. I think the 2 black's probably a very big part of it.
Oh yeah, like you look at his deck and he's only playing 2 Underground Sea, so trying to play a Tombstalker with only access to that little black is just basically impossible. Also being able to do it for 1 mana is a big play in a format where you're trying to do so many things per turn.
Yeah, when you want to hold up Spell Pierce, when you want to brainstorm at end of turn, there's just so much you need to do.
Yeah, and we see the Nimble Mongoose chumping the Gurmag Angler, although it's to not die this turn to the Deathrite Shaman activation, but it still leaves Dom presenting lethal next turn.
And even if he does manage to throw down chump blockers, that Deathrite Shaman's only 3 turns from now.
Yes, it's looking very, very dire for Rob, and Dom's still sitting pretty at a high 16 life total. Price of Progress certainly not in the lethal range at this point.
Oh, it is lethal for someone. I'll go out on my own laurels.
Yeah, to be honest, I wasn't even sure if he'd bring in the price in this matchup, as it does seem like it's going to get in those situations where you need to be winning for it to win the game.
Yes,
and
bear in mind though, he's a little bit faster than Dom. Dom's running the full 4 colors, meaning he does need 3 lands out to get all his mana going, whereas to cast every spell left in his deck, Rob only needs 2 lands.
Dom does have the Deathrite Shamans though to help him.
He does have the Deathrite Shamans, but that just, again, it's slower than a Delver, it's slower than a Bolt. So if he's bringing it in, he's going, I can get you lower than me quicker.
Sure, so it looks like Rob's really only out here essentially is to play another 1 mana creature and chump that Angler for a turn.
His own Angler would be good.
His own Angler would be good, but he unfortunately does not have access to one. A Tarmogoyf coming down, we're having a quick check on how big it is.
Land instant. Is it only a 2/3?
It seems like if there was a creature or something, then the Deathrite Shaman would be able to shrink it anyway.
Mongoose.
The Mongoose recently, but if that's the only creature, yeah, the Shaman will be able to end of turn.
He doesn't have green.
Oh, he doesn't have green. Okay, but still, the 2 damage,
down to
very
3.
relevant. And if the Tarmogoyf's only chumping, then it's not really a big hindrance to Dom at all.
He's dead to Bolt this turn.
So we see Dom fetching in his first main phase, which can't be good for Rob, getting a red source very quickly.
Is this when he just looks Rob in the eye and says, go?
It's quite possible. I feel like I would have offered the handshake to the fetch land if I was Rob, but Rob making him play it out, and Gurmag Angler coming in, the Tarmogoyf chumping. And Dom figuring out exactly what he can afford to play around, and forked bolt. And then the Death Rat activation. Oh, is a Stifle? The Stifle doesn't even get there as he has to take 1 damage. We see the Prize of Progress in hand. A Spellskite as well. Not holding off the Gurmag Angler.
No, unfortunately, I think Rob's draws were pretty bad there. But I think Dom just that Gurmag Angler so early. There was absolutely nothing Rob could do. He doesn't run the token creating creatures. He doesn't run any other way to really get ahead. His creatures are only blockers, and you can't block something that big for very long.
Yeah, against the Gurmag Angler, he really needed to have either a Force of Will or Daze to be able to stop that from coming down.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the booth. You're watching Next Level Games' Legacy event. That was round 4. We just watched the Berg Delver deck defeat Rug. The slightly slower deck just getting a 5/5 for black and riding that all the way to victory.
Yeah, it seemed very powerful in that matchup, and also the True Name Nemesis and Deathrite Shaman proving to be very relevant cards in the other games, and it was an interesting matchup to watch.
Yes, Price of Progress, not going to get there when you're on 4.
No, it's not really the card you're looking for. So I think we're going to have a quick break now, where there's like 6 minutes left in the round, and we'll be back for round 5 after that.
See you guys then.
Yeah, we are pretty much ready to go.
You want to do the intro?
Sure. Hi everyone, welcome to Next Level Games Dandenong, hosting the Australian Eternal Masters series with coverage by Sneak and Show. I'm Andy Cameron, this is Josh Butler, and we're about to head into round 5 of the Legacy event.
5 of 7, so we're not quite working the bubble yet, we're still working at the players at the top tables. And we've got Carlisle versus Tim Hughes. And we're just going to be pulling out their deck list now and running them for you.
So Carl, I was just talking to Carl, he's playing Infect today, so he doesn't play a lot of Legacy, so he just wanted to play something really powerful and linear. And
so these guys have all had one loss thus far, so these guys are our 9-pointers.
Okay, so you'd imagine that a loss here would make it pretty difficult to make top 8, having to rely on breakers.
Yeah, having to rely on breakers at best. Generally, because we've just hit 7 rounds, that's actually more likely that X2 will not make it.
And Tim Hughes playing the popular Omnitel deck that we've seen a lot of pilots championing. So I imagine the game will be ready very soon, and we'll head down there. Have we got the game starting, or? Like Carl playing just the 2 Become Immense, 3 Force of Will in his Infect deck to try and force through those big turns.
And Tim Hughes apparently playing Fat Zoo according to his deck list.
Ah, Fat Zoo, interesting.
4 Probe, 4 Brainstorm, 4 Preordain, 4 Ponder. Can I smell consistency?
4 Cunning Wish.
He is running the City of Traders over the Ancient Tombs, which are neither here nor there for most lists. He is going for the full 4 Dig Through Time also, and the 4 Cunning Wish. Once again, he's going for the Release the Ants version.
Which has been very popular with a lot of players, so... Resolving mulligans at this point. You can see a Spell Pierce from Tim. Looks like a Force in Carl's hand, I believe. Brainstorm. This looks like quite a good hand from Tim.
Yes,
Any hand with
it doesn't
Brainstorm.
look very combo-tastic though. It doesn't look like he's going to have much in terms of the turn 2 kill.
Possibly not, but...
He looks like he's trying to play more the long game, which... probably alright against Infect.
Yeah, assuming he doesn't die quickly to an early rush, he should be able to navigate around their tricks.
His opponent does not have the first turn creature, which means he's not going to be dead on turn 2.
Which is definitely where Carl wants to try and put Tim into that sort of a position. But unfortunately it won't be happening in this particular game. So again, 4 days as well for Carl to help try and force through his combo, and 4 Invigorate, and as some more free spells. 2 Berserk, 2 Ponder, 2 Gitaxian Probe, 3 Vines of the Vastwood for protection, a Spell Pierce, 2 Flusterstorm made, and 4 Brainstorm, of course.
Anytime someone sees Berserk, it's got to be good.
Yeah, it's certainly a big game, and Tim's going to have a look at exactly what's going up in Carl's hand. We see one of those days as a Force, Brainstorm, Pendlehaven, Become Immense, and an Invigorate. So a lot of pump, a lot of permission, but nothing to do it to.
Is that a kill if he has a creature between the Invigorate and the Pendlehaven? I think that's only 9 if it's a 1/1.
With the Become Immense and the Invigorate, it'll be
enough if he can
plenty.
activate the Pendlehaven and cast both the other pump spells.
Invigorate's 4, isn't it?
Invigorate's free if you give your opponent 4 life.
Yeah, and it's for +4/+4.
+4/+4.
Yes, so that with the Become Immense is +10. Yeah, so all Carl needs is a creature, and an Inkmoth Nexus certainly provides that. So now, yeah, Carl with a very threatening board here. Tim having to interact with, especially the Become Immense is the biggest one here. But even the Invigorate puts a massive dent into Tim's Infect life total. We see Carl hardcasting a Daze on the Brainstorm.
Bear in mind here, with that Because it is an Inkmoth Nexus and not a creature, he's not going to be able to cast both the Become Immense and the Invigorate this turn.
So another probe. So keep in mind, Tim knew about that daze, so I imagine he was expecting his first brainstorm to get countered.
Tim, as a player, is quite well known throughout the Melbourne Magic scene. He's one of the PTQ grinders, so he's not prone to making too many mistakes at this kind of level of event.
He's certainly familiar to it, yeah. He qualified for the last regional PTQ and is already qualified for the next one as well. And actually just got back from GP Vegas.
If we see his face, you'll get to see his lovely sunburn.
He, certainly wasn't expecting how hot it was going to be over there. So we see Brainstorm resolving here. There's already another Brainstorm and a Spell Pierce in Tim's hand.
There is a Cunning Wish there, so if he has mana and time, Cunning Wish for Wipe Away on that Inkmoth Nexus may be possible, but I don't think he's got enough time.
No, that's very far in the future. At this point, Tim's just trying to live through one turn at a time. And so you can keep just burning these probes off for free, as his life total is very irrelevant in this matchup.
Plays Misty. He did put a Scalding on top, so he did put looks like 2 lands back.
So he's holding up his Spell Pierce here, and I can't quite see whether or not he has another Force of Will or Daze or some other bit of permission, but it seems like he won't be dying this turn. And
do you try and do the Invigorate here, or do you just Pendelhaven for two poison to make sure any impending turn's lethal?
I feel like you go for the Invigorate. It's not like you're scared of Lightning Bolt or getting Tooth Wand or anything, so it feels fairly safe. And actually, Carl using the Pendelhaven to activate the Inkmoth, potentially representing Spell Pierce.
1 poison counter. Well, between the Invigorate and Become Immense, that's 9. So if he draws a land next turn, can do both of those. Or sorry, Become Immense he can do, and the Invigorate is free.
He's a bit off of Become Immense at the moment as far as Delve is concerned. He's going to need to fill up his yard slightly. And Tim Hughes going for his 3rd Brainstorm here. Haven't quite seen all the contents of Tim's hand, but if he does have the Show and Tell Omniscience here on turn 3, then it certainly changes up the game considerably.
On turn 3 he is fighting. He does know about the Force of Will in Carl's hand, so...
Yeah, so he would need his own permission to back it up. And we see a Show and Tell there he is found with the Preordain. So yeah, in this matchup, Tim's sort of just trying to slow down Carl and just sort of keep him off killing him until he can combo off. And he'll never really sort of establish true control, I wouldn't imagine.
You only need to be alive until the turn before you're ready to go off.
Indeed. So that Scalding Tard's coming down. And I think there was another Brainstorm in Tim's
that was a
hand.
3rd Brainstorm.
And we see Carl firing off a Brainstorm of his own. Now, Tim's got to decide whether or not he wants to Spell Pierce that, and I'd imagine you let it resolve, as you really need the Spell Pierce to stop the Invigorate, Become Immense, etc. from just being incredibly damaging to you.
So that was a fetch land,
looks like a
Gitaxian Probe and another Brainstorm. Off his first Brainstorm, meaning that he can have a look at Tim Hughes' hand, weigh up the options, and he may have enough to go through here, depending on what Tim's been drawing off his Preordains.
Yeah, the Gitaxian Probe seems like it's going to be fantastic in this matchup. And yeah, really
probe straight into that into the fetch land, crack the fetch land, or even fetch land first.
Yeah, just let Carl know exactly what his opponent is working with and when he's best going to be served by going for it.
Interesting, he knows he wants that top card.
Yeah, so the top card must have been the other Brainstorm that he's hoping to keep.
Okay, so next time he does have Show and Tell Omniscience with a Cunning Wish with Spell Pierce backup.
Wow, very strong. And now that Carl knows about it, though, he can leave up Force of
If there's
Will.
a land on top. Only if there's a land on top.
Oh, yes. So yeah, he'll need a land to do that. But again, right at this point, there's no real need for Tim to go for it straight away, especially when he knows that there's a Force of
He can
Will.
also dig through time right now for a force. But then he'd be choosing between force and spell pierce.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely a very tense moment for both decks, playing with a lot of information. So yeah, Carl can activate Inkmoth Nexus, but then he can't, oh, we see a fetch crack. And another Tropic Island coming down. So if you're Carl here, do you think you attack with the Inkmoth Nexus, or do you just pass?
I don't think there's any reason to not attack with it. It's just that whether or not you want to pump it. And what you pump it with.
Well, I don't think you can afford to pump it, because then you won't be able to pay for the spell pierce when you if you Force of Will the Show and Tell. Carl definitely weighing up all these options and trying to figure out exactly balancing that act between wanting to kill Tim and wanting to not instantly be dead to the Omniscience combo. So he is deciding to activate the Inkmoth Nexus. Tim will, of course, allow.
For those who have just tuned in, this is the Next Level Games Eternal Masters event. This is the Legacy event, brought to you by Next Level Games and hosted by Snick and Show on Twitch. We've got 67 players here today for the Legacy, so we've got 7 rounds and a cut to top 8, and a Mox Sapphire going to first place, as well as everything else that's going on there.
Yeah, so certainly big stakes. And Carl is deciding to use the Pendelhaven and a big... Oh no, he's not actually using it. Pendelhaven, he's just casting Become Immense.
So that's +5/+5?
It is. So threatening to do 6, which will, of course,
6,
be
7,
lethal.
8, 9 with the Invigorate.
Of course, be lethal with the Invigorate.
Spell Pierce.
So can Carl... Does Tim have any other interaction in hand other than that Spell Pierce?
I don't believe so. He can just force here and...
It seems like Carl's got the win, yeah, with the Force of Will into Invigorate. I didn't quite realise that Carl had enough food in his graveyard to be able to become immense. And we see him pitching that Brainstorm to the Force of Will.
Tim has shut himself off here from the instant speed dig through time.
Yep, he's cracking his fetch land.
He does have a Brainstorm in hand.
Yes,
so he
and
can brainstorm into...
a Desperation Brainstorm to try and find that his own Force of Will.
Just weave those Force of Wills to the top.
So a very tense moment with the whole game on the line right here, depending on what Tim can find of his Brainstorm. Although, to be honest, even if he does find a Force of Will, it still leaves Carl in a fairly good spot.
So is that Force resolved?
I believe it's still on the... Yeah, it's definitely still on the stack. There's no way. Oh no, it did...
In response
Oh,
to the
so with the Brainstorm on the stack, Carl is invigorating. So the Inkmoth Nexus now to 5/5, threatening to put Tim to 6 infects. Brainstorm now resolves. See a Flooded Strand, a Show and Tell, and a second Spell Pierce, but none of that helps here, and Tim scoops them up.
In fact, a very different deck in all the formats. When it was originally legal in Modern, they were using Blazing Shoal to get all that extra damage in.
Yeah, for a very short period of time that was allowed.
Yeah, and during that time you could still play Storm Goblins.
Yeah, Rider
Goblin
Flame.
Bushwhacker just to absolutely just overpower your opponent on turn 2 or turn 3.
Certainly a different format then. But yeah, the Infect deck in Modern now, quite similar to the Legacy one, although more all-in, playing more pump spells instead of the Dazes and Forces that the Legacy deck has access to.
I believe it also plays a few more Infect creatures, doesn't it? Starts playing the
Glistener
artifact
Elf and the Ichor Mere.
Yeah, we do have Glistener Elf here. We also have Blighted Agent.
Oh,
from
that was
Carl.
that was the one I was after. Blighted Agent, yeah. So
Carl needing to read Omniscience.
not a card that you come across often, except in this deck. It's not one that gets drafted very highly or saw a large amount of play in Standard.
Oh, EDH.
In EDH, I would imagine that it sees an amount of play, but I'd have to confer to someone else for that. Is it that good in EDH? You get heaps of mana in EDH anyway.
Yeah, but you cast it, and then you can cast all the big mana spells.
That's definitely true.
We'll need to get a EDH caster in here to tell us if all these cards are good or not.
I'm sure we have many on offer. So, in Carl's board, we see a Seal of Primordium, which is a nice little way to deal with that Omniscience, assuming
Already
that...
in play.
Yep. And another Spell Pierce, which I can only imagine would be coming in. Another Force of Will. And yeah, he's just really looking... And even 2 Closing Grips, which could potentially come in to, again, try and deal with that Omniscience. Although, do you think Carl's better off just focusing on bringing in the protection and just trying to force his combo through and worrying more about him resolving his spells than Tim being able to get Omniscience out?
I think Tim is around a turn 2.5 deck, maybe turn 3, whereas Carl is the turn 2 to 2.5. I think he's a little better at just pushing all the way through. I don't think he needs to bring in all the extra counter magic.
Do you think maybe being on the play or the draw affects how he chooses to board in this matchup?
Possibly. Being on the play obviously lets him slip under more stuff. He's only going to ever have maybe 2, max 3 counter spells aimed at him on turn 2. Spell Pierce, if his opponent does nothing, followed by, 2 forces. But if that happens, both players are spent anyway.
Yep. So welcome back to the booth. Josh Butler here with me, Manly Cameron, and we're doing casting the next level games, Eternal Masters. We're doing the Legacy event with coverage brought by Sneak and Show, and we're just about to see Game 2 of Carl versus Tim Hughes in round 5 with 2-round scope.
Tim definitely got a few cards to bring in here. The Lightning Bolts, you got to believe, have to be coming in.
Oh, for sure.
The Flusterstorm, do you think he's going to be bringing that in just for the extra bounce spells?
I guess it does deal with all the infect spells. Yeah. Actually, I think the Flusterstorm seems like a good call. Actually, especially if you get into a counter war over a particular pump spell, or even 2 pump spells, then the Flusterstorm can come in at the end and just mop everything away.
Oh, only if he's doing his pump spells at sorcery speed.
Well, we saw in that game that the Become Immense came down, then a Force of Will, and then the Invigorate. So a Flusterstorm in that situation would have been incredibly powerful. So I could see that coming in, definitely.
Yep. Rebs help the control game against the counter spells, but not against the actual creatures. Blighted Agent's blue, correct?
Blighted Agent, yes. So Rebs seem quite good, dealing with the counters and taking out that Blighted Agent. So double duty, essentially. Electrickery as well being another very good one. Actually, Tim's got a very good board here. Yeah, the Rebs.
Oh, I totally missed that Electrickery down the bottom. There's... Yeah, that seems pretty good against all those 1/1s. Pendelhaven versus Electrickery.
You'd imagine that Carl's not going to sort of flood the board with creatures, especially not with how many he has, so it's only going to be a 1-for-1. Although if he does manage to resolve it in response to a pump spell, he can get a lot of value out there. So with Both players sideboarding. We'll be going back to the table very soon and checking out game 2. Yeah, I think game 1 looked to be in Carl's favour, but Tim doesn't now, and it'll be interesting to see how that's affected the matchup. Although, whenever you're bringing in sort of all these reactive spells, it does slow down your combo kill.
Yeah, and you can sit there with an omniscience in play and just say go.
Yeah, sometimes it is not. It doesn't do anything on its own. You definitely need other cards with it.
What I'd be not going to happen. I'm going to put money on it right now. He's brought in Swan Song.
Mm-hmm.
He casts Swan Song, and Carl says, "Fine, I'll pump that." He gets there for 20.
I have seen in Modern sometimes the Noble Hierarch beatdown plan does get there with a few Become Immenses, so it could happen, but it's definitely not what Carl's looking to use as his route to victory.
Oh, you got to feel bad if you're Tim, though.
Yeah, it definitely would not be exciting.
Both players pondering their mulligan decisions. Whiteboarded island. What do you think about a whiteboarded island?
It's a nice island at least. We see a ponder coming out.
Yep, he definitely brought the Rebs in. There's a Reb in that ponder.
And Tim, not happy to see that at all. The Reb, if there was already a Glistener agent out, it'd be a good keep, but I guess Tim deciding that he wants to try and find either different interaction or different ways to combo as fast as he can.
Possible mana sources. We didn't see the remains of his hand.
It's quite possibly
They were 3 spells there.
Yeah, this deck definitely needs to hit at least 3 mana to be able to properly interact.
In fact, one of the fairer combo decks in Legacy. Dredge obviously often won't dredge ball you turn 1, but it is possible with the LEDs. You just go land, LED, crack LED in response to you casting a Faithless Looting and just go off from there. Storm, obviously TES can do it, so can all the Storm variants. Because of Summoning Sickness, nothing like that's going to happen. So
Yep.
Tim knows he has that first turn that he can spend digging and hold up protection from there.
Plus also those Dredge and Storm, one of the bigger advantages of playing those is they blank a large number of cards from a large number of the field, whereas Infect lets you interact with it on many different axes with both counterspells and removal and resource denial.
Yeah, when you're one of your 3 ways to win the game is a land, Wasteland, which is omnipresent throughout Legacy, is a very, very important factor.
Although luckily not in... Does Tim have Wastelands?
There'll be no Wastelands here.
Yeah, so... Not in this particular matchup, luckily for Carl. Tim having nothing that turn. Island fetch, possibly going to go for a Brainstorm at some point, and we see a Reb in his hand.
Another good one. Release the ants, deal 1 damage to your agent. So this is Carl's turn, correct?
Yeah, Carl deliberating over his land drop, possibly wondering whether or not he needs a second coloured source or if he can afford to put the Inkmoth Nexus down, and he decides to go for the Inkmoth Nexus. Yeah, Tim playing a Preordain, which looks like he drew it off the top, otherwise you'd imagine he would have cast it last turn. Still just, yeah, digging and digging as these combo decks are wont to do, filling up the graveyard so that if he draws one of those dig through times or has one in hand, he can fire it off.
Dig through time, one of the big parts of Legacy that I think, as we know, Omniscience and Miracles are the 2 biggest decks going in. Prior to the last banning announcement, obviously the one that nixed Treasure Cruise, all UR Delver, and the Berg Delvers were quite big, just because they were able to streamline so much. They lost Treasure Cruise. They're not being played as much, while these guys still have Dig Through Time.
Yeah, Dig Through Time obviously operating on a very similar power level to Treasure Cruise, but still being allowed in this format. So the decks that are able to properly utilize that, mainly the combo decks, are definitely very, very strong at the moment.
No, I'd classify Miracles as more a control deck. It combos lands and spells.
Sure, but it doesn't utilize D3 Time anywhere near as well as the Omnitail deck does, and that's shown by team running 4 and most of the Miracle decks
only running 2 or 3.
Only running 2 or so.
Not seeing the players' hands kind of makes you long for the online world where you can see each player's.
Yeah. Oh, I can see a Spell Pierce in Tim's hand there, which is shown to be a very important card in this matchup. And so his main phase Brainstorm after a cracked fetch land, so possibly mana stuffed here. It looks like Tim doesn't have many lands in his hand at all, so it's quite likely he's just trying
to
to
a Bloodstained Mire at the
hit a
bottom
land.
Or possibly a Scalding Tarn. Oh, that's a Scalding
Does the deck
Tarn.
run Bloodstained Mire?
No, it's just a Scalding Tarn.